Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1991 made-for-cable thriller Flight of the Black Angel. Now, Flight of the Black Angel is one of those films that I remember just deciding to check out a while back based on the cover and based on the synopsis alone. A renegade pilot who gets a nuclear weapon and this is threatening to blow up Las Vegas. That sounded pretty good. That sounded interesting to me. And ever since I first saw this film, I've been a fan of this one. I will say this, I think there are certain parts of this movie that are definitely stronger than others. I think it has a much stronger first half and finale than it does a middle. But for a made-for-cable movie, I think it's still really quite good, especially compared to a lot of the other made-for-cable thrillers from around the same time period. And I feel it's a little bit of a gem because it's a movie that isn't talked about that much. And when it comes to fighter jet movies, this is one that I think is definitely a little more unique than your average film from this genre. The movie is directed by Jonathan Mostow, who would go on to direct another thriller called Breakdown with Kurt Russell a few years later, and he also directed Terminator 3. And prior to this, the only other film he did was a film called Beverly Hills Body Snatchers, which was a really bad direct-to-video horror comedy. So this is his first foray into more serious kind of content. And I think he really did soar here. I've honestly feel his direction in this is very good for what it is. When it comes to the low budget that he's working with, I think Flight of Black Angel has some really nice looking shots. There are some moments here when you look at the film that really do stand out in a good way in terms of the way that he frames his shots, how he uses lighting in certain scenes, how he builds tension with the way that he's shooting a particular sequence. All in all, I think it's a well-directed film, especially when it comes to the flying sequences. I don't know if a lot of the scenes were stock footage or not. I couldn't really tell. So if that's the case, then the editor did a really good job blending them in. But I think a lot of it was actually just stuff that was shot for the movie. In fact, there are a few sequences where you can tell that there are some miniatures that are being used. But overall, I think it's a well-directed film for what it is. And it definitely does show that Jonathan Mostow is a director that was getting better as he went along. The film was written by John D. Brancato, Michael Ferris, and Jonathan Mostow, who is the person who came up with the story. And I like this script. I don't love this script because I think the middle is where the plot really starts to sag, and I'm not necessarily a super big fan of the ending, despite the fact that I understand why it's ending that way. But it's one of those things where it starts off really strong with this disturbed Top Gun pilot at an Air Force Academy, Captain Eddie Gordon, who's talented, but he's definitely got some screws loose, and you can kind of tell that he's not all there even early on. And then something causes him to snap, and he kills his entire family with a gun, and then he takes a fighter jet that's loaded up with weaponry, with bullets, with a bomb, which is, they call it a dummy bomb because it's not supposed to be able to do any damage, but technically you can turn it into a nuclear weapon if you're willing to expose yourself to nuclear radiation. And this is a man who is so disturbed and so out of his mind that that's a risk he's willing to take. So he turns the dummy bomb into what essentially is an atom bomb. And he's going to blow up Las Vegas. He starts his journey of death and destruction by going up in a training exercise and blowing up a bunch of other fighter jets during what is supposed to be a harmless training exercise. And that was a really intense and strong sequence. It's like, what if you had one of those training sequences in Top Gun, but somebody had live weapons and live ammunition and was disturbed and was quoting Bible scripture and was completely out of their mind. And it's a really great sequence for what it is. But then the script, it starts to kind of falter when it slows things down. When he's landed the plane somewhere, he's in hiding. He takes this mother and her husband hostage, and it starts focusing on those two and the captain. And when that happens, it's just not nearly as interesting. I think it's trying to give this character a little bit more humanity, but it doesn't really work out that way. I think really it's just a setup to have the mother somehow survive this ordeal and then be the centerpiece for the last shot of the film. So you have a survivor of his attacks, so to speak. And it's just one of those things where it just wasn't as interesting. It kind of felt like a different movie. It turned into a hostage film where a crazy guy is taking a couple hostage, and it just wasn't nearly as compelling to me. But then once he gets up back in the air, and the pilot, his flight instructor, Matt Ryan, once he sets his sights on Captain Gordon and they get in a duel to essentially kick off the film's finale, that's where the film really starts to fly again and is really quite thrilling. But it's just one of those things where the middle kind of sags a little bit and kind of takes the air out a little. But overall, I still think it's a pretty good script. And the ending, like I mentioned earlier, I would have liked it more if somehow, some way, Matt survived. I understand why he died, because that was the only way to stop him, because he was going to crash the plane and commit suicide and take out Las Vegas along with him. So the only way to take him out would be, in essence, a suicide mission. So because of the nuclear fallout. So I understand why he didn't make it, but it's just one of those things where I really like that character, and the script did a great job making this character very engaging and full of personality, and a guy that you definitely did root for. So it was a bummer that he didn't make it out in the end. But I get it. I understand. But I just would have been nice to have seen maybe them play a little bit more with fantasy sort of stuff and make it so he somehow managed to make it out. But like I said, despite all those issues here and there, still a pretty solid script. The performances by the cast I thought were really good. In particular, William O'Leary, who plays the crazed Captain Gordon, I thought he was chilling. I thought he was genuinely, believably psychotic, and I think it's definitely one of his best performances. What's funny is pretty soon after this, he played a pilot In Hot Shots, he played a pilot named Dead Meat, which I find kind of funny. It's a very opposite of the character that he plays in Flight of Black Angel. Peter Strauss is also stellar. Peter Strauss is really fantastic in this film as the adversary, the hero, the guy who's going up against the antagonist, played by William O'Leary. He had a certain sternness to him, but also a certain fun bit of charisma and attitude. I really did love this performance. It's one of my favorite performances from him. You also have Rodney Eastman, who has a very bit role. He was in Dream Warriors and the Dream Master. He was the younger brother of Captain Gordon, who gets shot by his brother. You have like Brent Ronsley and Kay Callan, who plays parents. You've got a few other people, like you've got James O'Sullivan, who plays a colonel. You've got Patricia Sill, who plays this captain named Melissa Gator, who gets held at gunpoint, and she's forced to arm Captain Gordon's plane with live weaponry and ordnance. Um, and there's a few other actors and actresses, like the people that are taken hostage, Richard, Michael Keys Hall, and Valerie, played by Michelle Park. Um, and for the most part, the performances, they are pretty strong across the board. But the main two performances, the main two performers, that's where the best performances lie, is with Peter Strauss and William O'Leary, especially when it comes to the scenes that the two share with one another. They definitely do send off some sparks. Now, the film also features music by Richard Marvin, and I think the theme song's actually pretty decent as well. I think it's catchy in its own right. The rest of the music is kind of generic, but I like the main theme. It features cinematography by Lee Redmond. It's also edited by Barry Zetlin. I think when it comes to the technical aspects, the film looks pretty good, especially for a low-budget, made-for-cable movie that aired on Showtime. And the editing in particular is really good in the flight sequences that involve Captain Gordon using live ordnance and blowing up planes, and the final showdown between Gordon and Matt Ryan. So yeah, it's definitely one of those films that looks like it's a bigger budget kind of movie than it really is at times, and at some points that's due to the direction by Jonathan Mostow, as well as some of the other aspects of the technical merits of the movie, like the editing and the cinematography. It's 115 minutes, but I don't think it really drags that much, except for in the middle. If you can get past the kind of slow middle, I think it ultimately does reward you with a relatively tense and gripping thriller. And I would like to see it get a release in the US. I would pick it up on Blu-ray. I doubt it will ever get a Blu-ray release, because this is an overseas release, so it's region locked. Also, this disc, it has some issues. I don't know why. There's no scratches or anything on the disc. It just has, it's like corrupted or something, because there will be moments where it'll just start glitching out. So that's another reason why I'd like to see it get a better release. But it's a movie where you can catch it on the internet. It's on YouTube. I don't know if it's on Tubi or something. It kind of sounds like the kind of movie that might be on Tubi. But yeah, I'd recommend checking it out sometime if you're into thrillers, especially a different sort of flavor when it comes to a fighter jet movie. Because this is definitely one of the more unique ones out there, because there aren't that many ones about a lone madman who steals a fighter jet with live ordnance and is threatening to blow up Las Vegas. Like, there isn't really a lot of fighter jet films that have that kind of plot line. And I think this film is definitely all the better for it, because it definitely does soar when it comes to providing not only just thrills when it comes to the flight sequences, but also when it comes to chills. Like, there's some really chilling scenes in this where Timothy O'Leary's character, Captain Gordon, is just completely off his rocker. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Flight of Black Angel. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.